Are we gonna get another cheat sheet for this unit?
No.
Yes, brother.
Yeah.
Brother.
Nothing was.
Can I have a drink of your
We
water?
should make like the cheat sheet like half of this. So I'm not gonna spill water.
Just take a sip.
No. That's not even useless. That's not just useless.
Okay,
Make it like a
we'll get into due dates and next unit stuff and etc. in a bit. Actually going to go through some content first from Unit 5, and then we'll get into everything. Okay, but let's jump right in. Good news. You only have 2 unit exams left. There's only Unit 5 and Unit 6. That's it.
But they're hard. But you don't get a cheat sheet.
Right. So the assumption is that as we progress through these units, you're smarter now than you were in September.
Debatable.
That means that these cheat sheets are now a thing of the past. That's not a reality anymore. No more cheat sheets. Okay?
Yeah.
We'll talk more about it later. I think you'll like the essay. I think you'll find it actually something that you're truly interested in, and you'll
Remember we got
be.
a piece of paper. Our whole entire document sheets. I had to write my whole entire paper on my document.
We're screwed.
No, you're not.
All
right.
Potter.
So here we go. We're starting to talk about something called the progressive era. In the previous unit, I had said, well, actually, let's go 2 units ago. This is Unit 5. 2 units ago, the major challenge of the federal government was these annoying things called states and how they were a little bit uppity. And that was Unit 3. And Unit 3 was, how does the federal government deal with these things called states? In Unit 4, the one you just finished, we really had 2 simultaneous themes going on. One is these annoying things called corporations and how the federal government would deal with the growth of corporations. The answer to that is this unit. How would the federal government deal with corporations? The second thing is, would the U.S. become a global empire? Okay. The answer to the question, what should the federal government do about fill in the blank? Abusive corporations, poverty, alcohol, women not voting, is answered in this unit. It is called the progressive era. To World War I, 1914, 15, 1920-ish. 1890 to 1920, it's pretty good bookends for this thing called the progressive era, when the federal government was very active. Oh, there's a problem? Federal government can do it. Federal government can solve that problem. Okay? But just as a reminder, let's identify what the problems were, who found those problems, et cetera, et cetera. So let's meet a muckraker. Have I used that term before?
No.
Yeah, you put it on the Kia.
You
haven't heard it before, but it was on our last week's Kia.
All right.
What?
Picture yourself sitting on a dock. The lake is beautiful, pine trees everywhere, things smell wonderful. And then your annoying little brother runs and jumps off the end of the dock into the fairly shallow water, lands in the muck, bringing the muck up and dirtying the lake. Now, did he dirty the lake?
No.
What did he do? He brought it to the surface. It was always there. He simply made it. Poverty is a reality. This guy put a mirror to American society and said, look at yourselves. Stop ignoring what's going on. He wrote a book called How the Other Half Lives. Hey, American, sipping your little coffee and your little barista and enjoying your Sunday afternoon. There are a whole lot of people that aren't living the way you live. Look at them. These are kids younger than you. They aren't going to school. They're working all day in a factory. If they're lucky, by the way, they have a job. Well, this is a problem. Anyone want to predict the solution to the problem of kids working in factories all day? I mean, you are allow me to give you a clue, and then I'd be glad to entertain guesses. You. There's your clue. Yes? Yes. Full-time student education, right? In every state, you have to go to school until a certain age. In Wisconsin, it's 18. In Minnesota, it's 16. I heard another one. Can you expound on that? Are you aware of any? A certain age, right? I think it's 16, although there are some exceptions. Child labor laws. Exactly right. Okay. Very good. Okay, so you've predicted the solutions. Many of those solutions came up during this era. It's kind of an interesting chart. This shows the wealthiest people on earth, the world's richest 1%. And who are they? And this is, by the way, today. This is an example of synthesis. Global poverty is a real thing. So what they did was they took the wealthiest 1% and they said, all right, what if it was, how many people we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, 1, 2, 3, 4. 15 times 4. 60 people. If they took the wealthiest 1% and pretended that the wealthiest 1% were 60 people.
So the top 60.
If the world's population, wealthiest 1% were just 60 people.
Okay.
Almost half would be Americans. Americans, blue. A few Germans, a few French, some Italians, et cetera, a whole lot of Europeans. There's no Africans up here at all.
Well, yeah, but the entire continent of Europe barely even keeps up to just us.
Very good. Even though they're a larger population, by the way. Europe has a larger population than the U.S. European population is something like 450 million. We're around the 330 million range, okay? And then what you do is you say, you know, we're the wealthiest nation on earth, which is true. We are the wealthiest nation on earth. What does American poverty mean compared to like African poverty, right? It's relative. You know what I mean? If I had you picture for yourself a poor person in Chicago, okay, just mental image. And now picture in your mind a poor African person. I mean, someone in Africa. Are they the same? Probably not, right? The African's probably got a huge belly because he's starving. Probably has a fly on his mouth because he has no energy even to fight the thing. There's probably some sort of an awful epidemic that's wiped out the crops. You know what I mean? What I'm suggesting here is poverty is relative. A poor American compared to somebody from somewhere else, it's relative what poverty means. Okay. The point of this slide is just to remind you that there were people that identified what the problems were. Jacob Riis was one of them. These people were called muckrakers. They drew the problems to the visual part. They wrote books and they wrote newspaper articles and they exposed the problems like poverty. Okay. The second step would be government action. What are we going to do about this? And you already predicted some possible actions. Okay. Ready? Only one slide left. Isn't that great? Let's meet some other muckrakers. Rakers. Muckrakers.
Muck crackers.
Muckrakers. Okay, fine. Each of these has a problem, a muckraker, and a probable attempt at a solution. Here's the problem: corrupt government. Mayors, governors, city officials bribed by businesses to award contracts. We looked at a little bit of railroads that were awarded contracts, and maybe there was some funny business going on between government and private industry. Here's the muckraker, Lincoln Steffens. He writes a book called The Shame of the Cities. And in that book, he exposes corrupt practices in some American cities between big businesses and government, local government. Okay, there's your problem.
So is he the person who was like, the problem is we have all these political machines?
That's the guy we'll meet in a bit named Thomas Nast. This guy was, and that's certainly a problem. This guy was more, how come that company got the contract to pick up the garbage in that neighborhood? Well, a little bit of investigation revealed it's because that company bribed the city council to award them the contract. Okay, that's called corruption. It's illegal. There are accusations, I'm not saying this is true or not, but there are accusations that the Trump administration is engaging in corruption, because what'll happen is that foreign dignitaries will come to the U.S. and they'll meet with the president, and where will they go? A hotel that the president owns. Well, some people are saying that's corruption. You can't do that. You're directly benefiting financially from your position as president by having meetings at your hotel. And that's illegal. And I'm not here to say, yep, it is, or no, it isn't. We'll save that for another day. Muckraker, Ida Tarbell. And she writes about the wealthiest American ever, Rockefeller, right? The guy who at one point owned the Standard Oil Company, which at one point controlled 90% of the world's oil. He's the owner of the company that owns 90% of the world's oil. And remember, we talked about this, I think. Remember what he did? Remember some of the things he did? He would open up a gas station right next to yours, lower the price until you went out of business. Then he'd buy your business, burn it, and then move. Right? That's cutthroat, right? I don't mean literally burn it. I mean close up shop. And who's going to take this guy on? The media. That's who's going to take this guy on. Book writers and newspapers are going to expose it. They're going to expose this guy. And then government will step in and say, not anymore. We're going to fix it. But it's Ida Tarbell that sort of gets it going. Our final person is, well, and then this one's another one, but how about race? How about the problem of race? Of course, you know at this time, Jim Crow is alive and well in the South, right? Anyone confused when I say Jim Crow? I don't mean there's a person named Jim Crow. When I say Jim Crow, does anyone not know what I'm talking about? You all know what I'm talking about. Well, how about Muckraker, a guy by the name of Baker, who reports about how bad it really is in southern states. This fellow's 12 years old, and there he is in a factory, right? So child labor again. Photographers. It was not only written books and not only written newspaper articles, it was pictures. What's more effective? A paragraph describing a cute little kid who has to work all day in a factory because his fingers were small enough to line the casings of bullets with the grease that would be manually lined. That's what he did all day. He took a little grease, lined the casing so that the shell could go in it. Contract for the U.S. military. What a fun job that would be. And for the point of today is the people who exposed the problem, the muckrakers. What we'll start attacking tomorrow is what will government do about it, whether successful or not. Up here are some examples where the government, I would say, successfully addressed it. And one very glaring example of government failure. Government did not solve this problem during the progressive era. Do you know which one?
Race.
You know which one? Go ahead. Yeah, race. They didn't solve that. Really a good faith attempt at solving the race problem until the civil rights era of the 1950s and 60s. This is 1890 to 1920-ish. Okay. End of notes. Hooray. All right, put that away. Oh yeah, we're done for the day, except we're not. Okay, did you all get the photograph I sent you via Remind with various due dates for Kias? What? Yes, with creature from the whiteboard also. Okay, so you know that at the end of each week for the next 4 weeks, 2 Kias per Friday. 2. This Friday, 2 Kias are due. Next Friday, 2 more Kias are due. Friday after, 2 more. And there's a spring break in there where there's something's due the day of last day of school, spring break, and then take a break, come on back, and then that following Friday after spring break, 2 more Kias are due. Okay. If you're going somewhere on spring break and you want mindless spring break where you're not even thinking about it, you can do that. It is within your power to make sure you have nothing to do over spring break. It is within your power. Okay, make it so. Any questions on that? Okay, I'm going in specific order here intentionally. I am giving you now the documents for essay number 5. Here they are. I want you to notice it's one piece of paper. I want you to, what is that? I want you to notice that each document is pretty short. Pretty short. Okay, that's
Wait,
the
this is
good.
for what?
Essay number 5.
Essay number 5.
Blue book essay.
Are you just gonna get them filled or are you gonna shape?
Well, they'll like shave them down a little bit. Like, I don't know what color they're gonna give us this day.
I really want to get lavender acrylics.
Yeah.
What are you going?
After the
If I have money, I want to go to.
Can we write on these? Yeah.
I will explain what's on both sides here, so just hold tight.
Why is some blurry? This is attendance.
Okay,
Oh, I don't
so everyone has a copy. Let's look at it together for a minute. The question you're answering in as the prompt. What is your prompt for Blue Book essay number 5? It's right at the top of the side of this piece of paper that has the actual documents. Was the United States justified in dropping the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? And there are 7
Is that
documents.
Hiroshima?
Hiroshima, tomato, tomato, potato, potato.
Okay.
Can we write on these?
Like no one says Hiroshima.
Okay, that's a good question. That's all I'd say. Can you assume? Sorry, let me rephrase that. You can assume. There we go. That these 7 documents argue reasons yes and no. This is your 5th round at this whole writing an essay based on document evidence, and then you have to find historical evidence, and then you have to analyze and reject and support and synthesize and contextualize. This is your 5th go-around. I'm assuming you get it now. You understand how this works. And so I'm trying to tell you that my role this time is minimal. I'm really not going to be spoon feeding you whether the argument seems to be in favor of or against, or what is the argument making. But the good news for you is the documents are short, and I'm not trying to make you feel dumb here, but they're easy. These are easy documents to analyze. You can figure it out. You can do it. Okay? Now, what I will do to make your life slightly easier is, what I could do is have all of you analyze all 7 documents. I could do that, but I won't. Instead, I'm going to go around right now, and I'm going to number you 1 through 7. Your job for tomorrow is to analyze your one document. Be able to answer these questions about your one document. Who's the speaker? Who is the person making the argument? Number two, who dat? In other words, what is the credibility? Why should I listen to this person? If I told you that Marie Corbett argued we should have dropped the bombs, we should have. Marie Corbett.
She's famous.
She's my neighbor.
Okay.
What's the thought? Any questions?
She
I mean, if you put in your essay, Marie Corbett argued, my question is, why are you talking to my neighbor? When were you there? Right? Why didn't you call me over? Right? Credibility. What is the credibility of your speaker? Question number 3, yes or no? Yes, the U.S. was justified. No, the U.S. was not justified. Number 4, why? Why? Why was the U.S. justified or not justified? What is the argument being made?
I'm so tired.
And then assume that you are being given the responsibility of finding evidence, historical evidence to support the arguments being made, and in a couple of examples, refute. You need to find, my suggestion is find 2 historical examples per argument. You then take one and support, you take the other and refute a different argument. I didn't say for tomorrow. For tomorrow, a document analysis. Speaker credibility, yes, no, why? But assume that within your universe now is trying to find historical evidence to support / refute the arguments being made.
And if we're not here tomorrow, this is what we're going over.
Yeah, we'll be going over some. On the other side is simply a list of questions just to make you think about what your opinion is. Maybe. But just some questions to make you think about it. You know, just looking over these. Did we have to bomb them? Couldn't we have just simply blockaded? Why didn't we just surround Japan with the Navy and say, your move? Why did we have to go in? Why didn't we just surround it? Oh. Careful. Bullet number 2. Why did we have to use atomic bombs? The bombing of Tokyo, which occurred before Hiroshima and Nagasaki, actually killed more people than either one of those atomic bombs. But weren't we setting a dangerous precedent? Weren't we saying to the rest of the world, go ahead, make nukes, use them? We did. Wouldn't it have been wiser to maybe not cross that line? Okay.
Yeah.
Why? Bullet number 3. Why did we have to unconditionally demand their surrender? Why didn't we say, all right, the list of demands you're making for surrender, fine. When you learn about what the Japanese demanded, when you learn, I think you'll pause about that one. Does anyone know the Japanese made one demand? Can we just please one thing? And the U.S. said, no, drop it. You know, go ahead. Yeah, can we just please keep our emperor? Can we just please keep our emperor? No. And then the irony is we let them keep their emperor, right? We dropped the bomb. They said, can we keep our emperor? We said no, dropped a second bomb, and then said, okay, you can keep your emperor. Okay, that's fine. Okay.
How do you just know this stuff, Jack?
What was the hurry? We dropped the first bomb. What was the hurry of getting them to surrender right away? Why? Why only 2-3 days? It was 2 days. Why? Why not give them a week? What was the rush? They were not capturing anything by that time. Their area of control was basically the island of Japan by that time.
Wait, we dropped bombs in Japan.
Oh
my.
Take that back.
You're kidding,
We're
right?
talking about Pearl Harbor.
We drop bombs on Japan.
And then when did Pearl Harbor happen?
We're not answering right now. These are just things for you to think about.
We did not bomb Pearl Harbor.
We dropped
Japan-
bombs on our own.
Bombed
we
Pearl
bombed
Harbor,
Japan and
but
then
we
Japan
bombed.
bombed us.
No. the
Other way
other
around.
We bombed them because they bombed us.
Well,
Kind of.
okay.
We bombed them.
Just
That's
some
what,
other
like,
things to
triggered
think
it.
about, okay?
You didn't know that?
Now, she asked, can we mark these up? And of course, the answer is sure. Mark them all up all you want. But on test day, you get a new clean sheet. A brand new clean sheet.
No cheat sheet.
There's no cheat
You can
sheets.
just use this. Empty.
You can use this empty piece of paper. Well, this. You can use this. It's unmarked. But this is it, right? Here are all your arguments. And you only need 4 of them. You don't need all 7. Right? 2 for, 2 against. Oh, right. You do need 1 synthesis quote directly. 6. Right? Intro, conclusion. Argument 1, argument 2, argument 3.
We're gonna talk about paper.
Are we gonna do our numbers?
Oh, yeah, right. Okay, here we go. Numbered 1 through 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4.
We would have kept on fighting until all deputies were killed. Which meant they would not have been disgraced by surrender.
So, okay, so I've now had 2 people ask me. So this will be back to the old way of writing papers. This is a 6-paragraph essay. Intro. Argument number 1, you disagree with, which you will prove and then disprove. Argument number 2 for the side you disagree with, which you will prove and then disprove. Argument you agree with, which you will prove. Argument number 1 you agree with. Argument number 2 you agree with. Conclusion. It's the same way you wrote the first 3 Blue Book essays. Our last Blue Book essay was a spice essay. It's different. Now we're going back to the old-fashioned, here's a question, here's both sides of the argument. I'm disproving the side I disagree with and proving the side I agree with. Questions? And now for a slightly more pressing matter. Your paper. You should have this already, but does anyone need a new copy? It's
Forgot what
the,
the papers.
it's the rubric for your 3rd quarter paper. If you have it, get it out, please. That's it right there.
I have it all written. I just have to.
Way to go.
Got a week.
Let's do it Thursday.
Do Thursday.
Thursday.
Why is it due Thursday?
Okay,
Because that's the due date.
let's do Thursday. Now,
Oh yeah, we have school now.
we do have school Friday.
Can we change?
Fine, Friday. Okay, so let me make your mood, I think, even better. Has anyone started the CIS?
We haven't learned anything. We don't know anything.
How far did you get? I was going to make your day and say I will waive the 2 CIS to do this Friday.
Why can't we?
Because she did it already.
She only started the first one.
Chandra, do you want to help the rest of the class?
What do you mean wave?
But I can't. It wouldn't be fair to her.
She just said
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Kidding.
I was like,
What do you mean wave? Get rid of it.
we don't have any keys to this Friday.
Because the papers are on.
Okay, so you haven't figured out what I'm saying is
I always do that.
I am waiving. You do not have to do the 2 CIS that are due Friday with this caveat. Understand what I'm saying right now. If you don't hand in your paper Friday, it becomes due for you. The paper and the CIS.
What time is the paper?
3.
3, no, it should be midnight.
You should just make it feel like
Man, you should shut
You
up.
have a student going to the office. Oh,
11:59.
Wait, what?
yes.
11:59.
We have to turn in the paper on Friday.
Did he lie? It's 11.
Yeah. If we want the keys. He just said 3.
But are you gonna look at them?
Oh, yeah.
He said 3.
Okay.
Everything will be over.
How many of you did both of the previous writing assignments, part 1 and part 2? Look,
Wait, what's that?
did you write a mini paper on Hofstadter and Lefebvre? Did you write
Is this one
a
that you shared
paper
with, like,
where
everyone?
you measured the justification for American empire?
I did the first one.
If you did, you are 90% done.
I did that.
All you need to do is fit them together.
You're gonna tell us how to do that right now.
Don't they have to rebuttal still?
Okay, so let us all look at the back of said piece of paper. It says part 3, put it together.
It's gonna make it more sense if you just tell me how to do it.
Can I have one of those? I'm sorry.
So no more kids. That's next.
Oh, no more Kias this week.
Yeah.
Just this
Then
one.
we're gonna have 4 new ones.
No. They're not due for you unless you don't do this. Then they are due
So
for
they
you.
are new.
No.
There's no extra credit called.
Like, not even.
You'll never have to do the 2 Kias that are due this Friday. Unless you don't do this paper. Then you do.
But do we also get 10% marked off
Of what? Paper, sure.
if we don't turn it in Friday? We have to do the keys and we get 10%.
Yes. I'm trying to motivate you to do this piece of paper.
I'm saying we never have to do them at all, not even next week.
Unless you don't do this.
You turn it in by Friday. There's no keys
All right.
this week.
So let me read through this, and then I'll happily entertain any questions.
They're
that you
just
have.
taken away. They're not added to anything else.
Okay. So I'm just reading this. Letter A, remember that in this paper you are arguing whether or not the U.S. was justified in acquiring an overseas empire. And then what you're doing is you are also incorporating the views of, it says, your chosen historian. Not necessarily. Okay. Letter B, it says you now have 7 paragraphs. This might be 6, but I'm assuming that you wrote a 4-paragraph thingy on reasons for and against empire, and then
2 and 2 or
2 and 2, right. So 4 and 3, right?
Yeah.
If you did the Hofstadter Lefebvre and the other mini paper, part 1 and part 2, you have somewhere out there a number of paragraphs already written, right? It might be 7 or 6, right? It's somewhere in there, okay? If you're there, you're in good shape. If you're not, fix it. It says 3 from part 1 and 4 from part 2, right? Now the rest of this is telling you what do you do? It says you are going to create an introduction paragraph. The hook could be the question, right? Was the United States justified in acquiring an overseas empire? That's a perfectly good hook. You don't have to do that. Blow me away with your incredible hook. The roadmap. Look at the roadmap. It says arguments for and against American empire. No need to mention your historian yet. It's just a typical roadmap. 1 sentence per argument. There are 2 for and 2 against. That's 4-sentence roadmap. Hook, roadmap. You're at 5 sentences now. Absolutely nothing I've said so far should be confusing to you. You've done this so many times, I'm sure you're sick of it.
What about the thesis? Is there no thesis?
That's a good question. The thesis is definitely, yeah, that should be in there. So number 3, it's not in there. Fix it. Thank you. Number 3, I made a error. Number 3 is your thesis. You come to a conclusion that yes, the U.S. was or wasn't.
And you still don't include your.
You don't need to include your historian.
Yeah.
Where am I putting a number?
You are writing with pencil or pen under roadmap. Make a number 3. I need a thesis. And I'm hoping by now maybe some of you are starting to figure out that this paper might just be easier than you think, because you're always synthesizing in any Blue Book essay. All I'm doing is telling you that instead of synthesis, put your historian's argument in the paper. Right? You're making an argument that, let's say, the United States was justified for economic reasons. That's what Lefebvre said. So in that paragraph where you're arguing that the U.S. was justified, you've got your wonderful document evidence. And remember, this time you are quoting. You are quoting from the documents. And then later on, you'll say, not, this is similar to the 1980s, blah, blah, blah. No, you'll say, this argument is supported by historian Lefebvre, who argues whatever he's arguing. You understand? You can pick your one historian. If you want both, fine, but you don't have to. And then figure out where his argument belongs in your paper. And then put him there. Instead of synthesis, you are putting a historian's point of view on that topic. Remember, Lefebvre was all about economics. Hofstadter was, what was he again? Political and economic, right? Okay, you like to pick one.
I don't get it.
When it says you must synthesize once.
I'll keep reading.
Okay.
I was hoping to ruin your day by mentioning it. Okay. It says body paper. Can you combine the 6 paragraphs you've previously written? This is your challenge. For example, can you combine the ideas of the paragraph addressing the argument for the U.S. justified in acquiring overseas empire for imperial reasons, spread democracy, with the paragraph from your historian argument that this was one of the reasons?
What?
Don't get confused here, right? You are arguing that either the U.S. was or wasn't justified, correct? And you have, what is your opinion? If I were to ask you right now, was the U.S. justified in acquiring an overseas empire? Don't say it out loud, but mentally, what's your answer? It's either yes or no.
Yeah.
Okay?
I don't really care.
So let's say that your answer is yes, the U.S. was justified. Paragraphs 2 and 3 will be arguing that the U.S. was not justified, which you will then prove and disprove. Will your historian's argument be in those 2 paragraphs?
Yes.
No. No, they will not.
50% chance of getting it.
They will not, because the 2 historians did not argue that the U.S. was not justified. What they argued was why the U.S. did it, not whether the U.S. was justified or not. All they did was argue, here's why the U.S. did it. That argument belongs in the paragraph arguing the U.S. was justified. What do you mean?
Explained it easier.
I'm so lost.
Yeah, but I'm required by the U of M to make sure you understand not only history, but historiography. Here's what the historian has to say.
Just on that.
Well, yes, but I also want to know whether you think the United States was justified. Yes, I am.
Oh my God.
I have to write it this way. Okay. If you want my advice, here we go. Write the 6-paragraph paper without your historian at all. Ignore it. Just write a straight 6-paragraph paper on whether the United States was justified or not. 2 arguments for the side you disagree with, which you prove and disprove with document evidence and historical evidence. Intro conclusion.
Oh, sorry.
2 arguments for the side you agree with, which you prove with document evidence and historical evidence. Write the whole thing. And then find the paragraph arguing the U.S. was justified for economic reasons and throw Lefebvre in there. Just fit him in there. Or find the paragraph arguing that the U.S. was justified for political reasons and throw Hofstadter in there. That will be a long paragraph. It should only be 6 paragraphs. Yep, exactly.
Say like instead of like, oh, like this happened. This time you say
this historian.
Hold on, I'm altering this slightly, so relax. Okay.
This historian says. So what about?
It says you must have a minimum of 2 quotes from your historian, part 1 in this paper, and you need a minimum of 4 quotes. I am changing the word 2 to the word 1 and changing the word quotes to the word quote. I only need you to have 1 quote from either Hofstadter or Lefebvre in this paper. Now, you could go beyond that. You could argue in your economic argument that the U.S. was justified, Lefebvre, and then in the next paragraph, you could have Hofstadter's political argument. Awesome. That doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to get a better grade. I've given A's for papers with only 1 quote from Hofstadter or Lefebvre's, and I've given not A's to papers with both. But I will say that a paper with both is probably better than a paper with just 1. Not necessarily. Okay. Letter 5, it says you must synthesize once. Scratch it. You do not have to synthesize.
Where's that?
Roman numeral 5.
I get the intro paragraph and the conclusion paragraph.
Letter E, create a concluding paragraph. The big idea of American empire. Look at the suggestions I have for you. We expanded westward. We acquired it. That's number 1. Spanish-American War. We went overseas. During the Cold War, we sort of infiltrated the world. Are we the world's policeman? This is only a suggestion. You can go whatever direction you want, but something about throughout American history. Blah, 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 blah. Contextualize. This is due Friday. Friday. But it's fair for me to make it Friday. You should be almost done by now. You should be almost done. That's why I made stepping stone due dates. Hey, by this date, you should be done with Hofstadter and Lefebvre. Hey, by this date, you should be done with a basic 4-paragraph thingy on whether or not the U.S. was justified. If you had done that, piece of cake. I mean, almost the only thing you need to do is take one of the historians, take it, and put it in the correct paragraph. You're done.
How many more papers do we have?
After this?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions?
You don't want to hear my question.
So basically,
So I need to write this paper.
Kind of. Yeah, you're simply putting the view of historian. You're right.
These are your 4 paragraphs. This week just needs to be over.
Louder, me walk to you.
And then you add a
Caffeine.
historian into one of those.
Okay,
So I wrote these.
12 minutes left.
Yeah, you take one. of
At
those.
minimum here, attack your document.
And it's not gonna be its own paragraph. It's gonna be. Yeah, I think so.
It really does.
Instead of like synthesizing, you can put your historian in. So this says 1.
Oh, it was